that Thomas Williford had made. A beautiful steampunk giant robot.
Oh, yes.
It has an on-site haunted house. There's an on-site bar. There is a pool, a playground. There's goats that wander the property. There's all types of birds, all around the property as well, peacocks and all sorts of very, interesting birds that you normally wouldn't find in a camping resort. I'm trying to think what else. And the rooms, there's a variety of different types of rooms. And then, of course, it has the main dining hall as well as the pub downstairs. And we're going to be utilizing a good portion of all of that throughout this weekend.
Yep. And I have to say, I was very surprised. Did I read it right on the Facebook group that the haunted house is going to be open?
Yes, the haunted house will be open. We have one of my committee members is a very talented gentleman, Dennis Carter Jr. If you've ever been to any conventions where people are cosplaying as Ash from Evil Dead, he is he's probably actually one of the best cosplayers I've ever seen of that character.
Oh, wow.
But he loves to act, and he was very excited when I said, "Hey, would you like to run the haunted house for me?" And he said, "Absolutely," and he jumped at the chance. So Saturday night from 7:30 to 9:30, the haunted house will be open. I may have to reschedule that time a little bit because we just had to adjust, now that I'm thinking about it, the time for dinner. So we might have to move that around a little bit and maybe make it a little later. But it will be open. It won't be a full haunted house crew, but there will definitely be some additional actors to make sure to scare you as much as possible.
It is an awesome layout. I've been through the house a few times.
What's that?
I've been through that house a few times. It's a phenomenal layout.
Yes. Yes, and during Halloween, of course, they not only have the haunted house, they also have additional really trippy things behind the haunted house that you have to walk through. And
oh, yes.
I got through I think about 90% of it, and then the last part was this big closed-in tent, and you kind of have to walk through this maze, and there's people just screaming all around you. And I just looked at my husband and said, "No, I'm going to wait out here." And what I didn't realize was that there was an actor dressed up as a clown right behind me, like literally right behind me, and I turned around and I still got scared anyway.
Not a fan of clowns?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm really not scared of clowns. It's just this one was like exactly my height. So I just turned around and there's just this clown face in front of me, and it's probably some 12-year-old kid, because I'm really kind of short, so it might even been a 10-year-old kid for that matter. But yeah, totally scared me. So, but yes, we will have it open for a little bit during the weekend for anyone that wants to get a sneak preview of. I believe actually the name of the haunted house is Massacre Mansion. Around Halloween time. So,
and it is absolutely
people can go
phenomenal.
Get a sneak peek.
I've been there for the two Halloween in the Catskills. The first Halloween in the Catskills, I only got to do one weekend, and I was there both weekends for the second, and I went through the haunted house all 3 times, and it's just like very cool.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have put together for us this weekend, and I have to say it is an absolutely gorgeous resort. If anybody lives in the New York area, I would definitely recommend come out, give it check it out. It's going to be a huge amount of fun. It's beautiful, and again, it's $160 for a hotel room in a nice resort, 4 meals, and an event. That's better than any event I think I've ever been to in terms of raw pricing.
Yeah, it is, and the staff at the Blackthorne really do go all out. The family that owns the resort, the Handel family, they love steampunk, and they really get into it. If you've never been there before, or even if you have, there's always something new that Dale is always making, and ready to show off. He's got the steampunked electric chair, which I think used to be an old hairdresser's chair, but that lights up.
It's very cool.
Displays. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And we have a great lineup of guests that have come together within the last couple of weeks, which is, I was not expecting. So I'm very glad that you're going to be presenting there, doing a couple of things. We have a great music lineup. Yep. It actually got to the point where I had to start turning people away. So,
oh, wow.
It was a good thing.
Given all the controversy, I'm really glad to hear that it did that kind of turnaround. And our co-host has arrived.
Yay!
Welcome, Drew. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, and Amy, this is Drew Rosansky, the original co-host of Paranormal Encyclopedia back in the day. To bring you up to speed, Drew, this is Amy Whitehouse, who is running Blackthorne Steampunk next week.
Hey, Drew.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Can't complain.
Good.
Other than traffic.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, man, how long it took you to get past that one light.
Yeah. Trenton is an interesting place where dreams go to die.
When I used to live in Philadelphia, I used to take the train back and forth from Connecticut to Philly because my family's all up in Connecticut. And
that's a hike.
I always pass that one bridge in Trenton that says Trenton makes the world takes. And I always thought that was the most bitter statement ever. Like, there was a little bit of passive aggressiveness to that because, like, well, we make it, but everyone else takes it from us. And that's how I always read it, and I continue to read it to this day. And that's all I think of when I think of Trenton is that one passive-aggressive bridge.
Find it funny that I've only really been to Connecticut one time, and it was at about 3:30, from about 3:30 in the morning till about 7 in the morning. Then we turned around and went home. Yeah, my old mentor got the idea, let's go do something. And it's like, okay, what? And after some discussion, we decided to go to a very famous cemetery in Connecticut called Union Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after, I got out of work at 11. I was in Pennsylvania, so it's about a 3-hour drive. So yeah, it's like 3:30 in the morning, and we're sitting in the van just outside of a cemetery gate because you can't actually go into the cemetery after dark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I live out in southeastern Connecticut now, but I'm actually from the other side of the state, and I was on my way to I'm in the apartment industry, that's my normal 9 to 5, and I was going to a trade show at Mohegan Sun Casino, and we were taking back roads, and we were actually traveling from Hartford, and we passed by Norwich State Hospital, which was I guess a state hospital that closed down in the 80s, and it was one of those things where basically they walked in one morning and said, yep, we're closing this, and they just shut everything down. They left everything there, just suddenly closed, and I was like, this place looks so awesome, and there's, security patrols everywhere, because obviously people want to get into these old abandoned buildings. And after the trade show, I went home, and I went onto Google, and I tried to find it. And what ended up happening was I did finally locate it, and I saw something on Google called Happy Land, Connecticut.
Happy Land, Connecticut.
Happy Land. And so go onto Google and go to Happy Land, Connecticut, and you're going to come to a little area of I think it's the town of Preston, Connecticut. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to go there again, and I'm going to find this hospital, because at that time I had no idea where I was going. And I drove out there and realized that Happy Land is the exact opposite of what you would think Happy Land would be. The houses, there's some very nice houses there, but it was built kind of right on the river, so it's these little small houses, and a lot of them are older, and the businesses there are kind of meh.
So
there's a
I'm jaded because it's exactly what I expect.
Yeah, it's kind of the exact opposite, yeah, basically.
That's what I would expect. What I wouldn't the exact opposite of what I would expect is like everything's perfect and everybody's actually smiling and happy, genuinely happy.
Yeah.
I'm just that jaded about the world we live in.
I mean, it could be that happy. It's just, somewhere in that town they're offering human sacrifices.
Clearly.
Well, if you are ever in southeastern Connecticut, feel free to let me know, and I will take you to Happy Land, and you will see exactly what I mean when it's not what you would think it would be, or it is what you think it would be, depending on who's judging.
Well,
but it's
no
right near Norwich State Hospital.
And I call not being the human sacrifice.
Well, he's the one who first said it, so he's clearly going to be the one that can sacrifice.
Yeah, I just won't tell them you're from New Jersey. You'll be okay.
But no, so to get slightly back on topic,
Yes.
We've been talking about.
Topic?
Well, we're talking about the event,
Yes.
but we keep using this word, and I have a vague idea, but hopefully one of the two of you can define it better. What is steampunk?
So for me, and for me, it's more. I kind of give the quick layman's terms because I talk about steampunk all the time with people at work, and I tell them I work these conventions, and I go to these conventions, and I have all these bands that are steampunk, that are friends of mine, and they're like, "What's steampunk?" And for me, the way I describe it is in very quick, 3 or 4 word summarizations. It's like it's a combination of like an industrial Victorian sci-fi world. It's gears, it's steam-powered vehicles, it's steam-powered anything really.
Yeah.
It's corsets, it's goggles, it's very well-dressed people. This is more than 3 or 4 words. It's it's the celebration of tea. It's the celebration of absinthe, of cephalopods. It's and really, I mean, what it comes down to is steampunk is what you make of it, literally.
Yeah.
I love the fashion. I'm really big into the fashion aspect. There are people who are more into the maker side of things. We've got some great makers that are going to be appearing this week or next weekend. And then we have people who just want to listen to the music and get dressed up and do very silly things while in corsets and petticoats and full suits.
Although not quite so dressed up, but yeah, it's mostly I go there to hang out, have fun.
That's okay. That's absolutely okay. You don't have to dress up. I have outfits planned for the weekend, but I'm probably going to end up running around in, jeans and a t-shirt most of it, unfortunately. But it's however I can get from point A to point B the fastest.
I have a definition, but I want to see if Drew's got an opinion. How do you define steampunk?
Imagine Abraham Lincoln with goggles and a Gatling gun arm.
Yes.
I think
exactly.
You just nailed it. I like the very first definition anyone ever gave me of steampunk, which is Goths discovered a new color, brown.
Yes.
And I might add the friend who introduced me to that definition of steampunk was themselves goth.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask who?
Yeah, and there definitely is a
remember for certain.
crossover, and you will find some goths at steampunk events and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's, you'll see steampunks at goth events.
You find that steampunk's in a lot. I mean, there's the one fantasy LARP that I know of that gets a steampunk contingent. I just did a Star Wars LARP, and some of the guns get a very steampunk look, and it seems to be like something mundanes or muggles perhaps because I hesitate to call them norms. That they don't necessarily know how to define it, and collectively it seems hard to define it in general, but you know what it is when you see it.
I mean, can you
Yes.
blame them for not being able to define it if we can't?
Yeah, exactly. Although I do think Abraham Lincoln with a Gatling gun arm
And goggles.
and goggles, because you can't forget the
goggles.
goggles, is possibly the perfect definition of steampunk.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I might start using that if that's okay.
By all means, go for it. I would not have been the one who started that either. I'm not going to take
Okay, well,
Of course, now this is just making me think of the idea I had once upon a time for a steampunk outfit, based on a list of steampunk fashion don'ts. Unnecessary gears, top hats, bustle skirts, striped stockings, and cheap goggles, like swim goggles that were spray painted bronze. Don't do these things, because it was criticizing people that are very new to the community and don't have the money to do the really cool stuff. So part of me being the eternal smart aleck I was, is tempted to get the cheapest pair of swim goggles I can, give them a cheap copper spray paint, get a cheap top hat, and get myself festooned in as many gears as I can find.
Okay. So don't take this the wrong way, Kevin, but I really don't want to see you in striped stockings.
Yeah. Well, yes, I would have to do the mini bustle skirt and the striped stockings.
yeah, you got to do the bustle skirt too. Yeah.
I'm not certain you pull it off. I mean, by all
I
means,
have fabulous legs, man.
Go for it.
Well, we will be doing on Friday. We are going to be doing a steampunk on a budget panel with Mickey Flint and Thomas Williford, who someone had suggested online. Can we do something like that so people can know how to do steampunk without spending, thousands upon thousands of dollars? And I threw it out there, and I had two of our makers be like, "Yeah, we'll totally do that." And honestly, I have to say, I totally am in that category.
Yeah.
I don't have the budget to do some of the more beautiful things that I've seen, but and for my daughter especially, I mean, because she's going to be 4 in July, but she has a more extensive steampunk wardrobe than I do, and that's 100% thanks to Goodwill, because it's amazing what you can find in Goodwill and repurpose.
Oh, good
And that's
Lord,
that's what I've been doing since she was a baby.
And anyone out there who needs a good costume, cosplay, or anything like that, stop by Goodwill. Well, it's inexpensive, and you get some great stuff.
Yep.
As
Goodwill,
far more of a
Savers.
customer than I am, I think you know that better than I do. I mean, the last costume I threw together was a little last minute. Although I got compliments on it, so I must have done okay.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I do like about a lot of the people in the steampunk community. I mean, there, of course, I think with any fandom, there is going to be a degree of those who will look at other people and go, "That's not really steampunk what you're doing right there," and then that's not, and you're cosplaying wrong and everything like that. But I think with the one thing I like about steampunk is that people that get into it, a lot of them encourage other people when they're like, "Hey, I'm starting out. I'm trying to figure out how I can steampunk this Nerf gun," which we are going to be doing a Nerf quick draw competition. And the suggestions and the advice that people give, because people genuinely love, they love steampunk. They want to share it with everybody. And that's the one thing I like. So even if you come in a t-shirt and jeans, but that t-shirt has painted on it, a very nice, vest and button-down shirt and, some sort of cravat or something like that, people will be like, "That's a great t-shirt." It's a t-shirt, but it's a great t-shirt because it's, it resembles what steampunk is. And I think that's why I like it so much, is that I don't feel the pressure to spend, that much money to have a good time with other people and still be fashionable.
And it is a concern I sometimes said when I first go into something like this, it's like, am I going to look like an idiot when I don't have a giant cool costume? And I've never felt unwelcome at a steampunk event or any other of the events. People are very cool, generally speaking.
And I feel like it's probably not a place you're going to feel like an idiot if you see people wearing squids on their heads.
This is true.
I mean, those squids look fabulous. They have. I've seen such ways of incorporating squids and octopi that you would never believe.
After all, in Amy's definition, she did include cephalopods.
Yes.
Everyone's so friendly and welcoming.
Yeah.
I'm just sad that my friend had to decide that's the weekend he's getting married.
Your friend sucks.
Yeah.
It's like, I can drag him along, steampunk road trip, but no.
Yay!
His friend had to get married that weekend. And
I'd rather be there.
Aww.
I can't blame you.
Bring a pagan into a church.
The church is going to catch fire. So, okay, next weekend, if there's any churches that burn down in Jersey, you know who to blame.
Yeah.
I am not accepting that blame.
Well, you're not going to set fire to the church, because I know you better than that. But it might burst into flames in your mere presence. In which case, it'll be your fault. Spontaneous church combustion is not something that you can control.
No.
So, it's your fault, but it's not legally something you can be blamed for.
But please don't blame me if there's a random church that happens to burn down in Cape May. I'm going to be nowhere near there.
Right. No, I think you'll probably be relatively safe. Probably.
I have to say that the thing that probably drew me in most to this the steampunk scene was just how many different people and how many different kinds of people, age groups, genders, ethnicities, all coming together to celebrate who they are on the inside as opposed to who they're forced into being.
Oh,
either
yeah.
by their work, by their means.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You look at, it's one of the things I like about the, for lack of a better word for it, alternative communities. That you see it in the geek community. You used to see it in the geek community. Sadly, the geek community is becoming cliquish, which drives me crazy. You see it,
but less sexist.
That's good. That's good. Although you still see a fair amount of sexism, annoyingly. But in the goth community, in the steampunk community, people, in my experience, are often very welcoming and friendly. When I look at the, I don't consider myself particularly steampunk, nor do I consider myself particularly goth. But I've been doing both types of events for some time now, and I've never once had somebody make me feel unwelcome. Which I think is particularly impressive when I can stand in front of a room full of pagans and talk about demons for an hour, and everybody's cool and receptive. Because in like the normal world, when I dealt with, you deal with some people, and Kemen's, I've gotten on the show. Oh, can we turn up his mic? Oh, which one is it? 2. So, talk now, Drew?
Yep, I'm talking.
Okay, can you hear Drew better? Hopefully chat will get back to us. Although I'm amused that my YouTube stalker showed up in chat.
There's a... What?
I have this guy that every time I post a new video, he's putting a comment on it, specifically about how the world is flat. It's like, no, the world is not flat. I've got literally 2,000 years of history that all says no.
I feel like we can probably go back more than 2,000 to find sources of the Earth being round, considering the Greeks were one of the first people on record to have recorded.
2200 AD, the librarian of the Great Library of Alexandria, the head librarian, ran a test that proved pretty conclusively the world was round.
Yeah, it was based off watching a boat sail over the horizon.
No, actually, no. It wasn't.
Oh no, that was the older Greek one.
Yeah, that's how the Greeks figured it out. Because the Greeks and the Egyptians and pretty much everyone else who was able to sail knew the Earth was round. There's actually some historical debate if anyone seriously thought the world was flat ever. But yeah, the first thing that everybody does is you watch a ship sail over the horizon. You watch the sun set. It goes bottom up. That doesn't make sense on a flat plate. It makes sense on a globe, which is what we have.
But don't you know the world is actually a flat disc on top of a turtle?
No. You're wrong. It is a flat disc on top of 4 elephants on top of a turtle.
You're right. I'll see that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking Terry Pratchett here.
Yeah.
Or it's on turtles and it's turtles all the way down. Which leads to the obvious question, all the way down to what? The hell prepared for people who ask that question is the only answer I've ever thought of.
Turtle bottom.
Yeah.
It's just the turtle bottom. You don't need to worry about it.
And yes, they can hear you now. Good.
Good.
So we are at the half an hour mark, which is usually about the time I like to give out the phone number in case anyone out there feels the urge to call in. It is 609-807-2492, 609-807-2492. You know, Iger, even if you want to call in, I'll take your call. Because we've had this happen once before with somebody who called in to criticize me. If you decide to call in, mute your YouTube. There's a delay between the radio and the YouTube, and if you try and listen to yourself while you talk, it's not going to sound right.
Echoes for days.
Oh yeah, she was funny because she called me on the air to try and question if I knew what I was talking about. It's like, lady,
do you?
No. Does anyone really?
I know who Legend Tully was. I don't know who you are.
It's like, really? It was a funny chat, and I was happy to let her run with it. but she couldn't get this idea of you need to mute your YouTube.
So I feel like here's an interesting question.
Yes.
How does demonology and ghost stories play into steampunk?
That's an excellent question. Honestly, I'm not sure it does. Beyond that, there are lots of people in the steampunk community that find those things interesting. Given I've been doing lectures at these events for a while, and people it's popular, people keep turning up. There's an interest. It's a good enough reason. The one way I would say it does connect is that steampunk is, broadly speaking, the Victorian period, and the spiritualist movement was very big in the Victorian period. In fact, it is not me, but another paranormal group will be there talking about the spiritualist movement. And another thing that was prominent in the 19th century, voodoo, which I will be talking about.
Don't forget the rise of Gothic horror.
Oh, good. Yes, very true. Dracula, Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Jekyll and Hyde.
The rise of Penny Dreadfuls.
Yep.
Edgar Allan Poe. He fits in.
Yeah. Horror certainly fits in. The paranormal does fit in. It's not, at least when I think steampunk, I think more sci-fi than horror. Although, funny enough, something near and dear to your heart, I was just doing character generation for Deadlands game before the show. And trying to explain Deadlands to new players. Steampunk horror.
Mm-hmm.
Wild West.
Yeah.
You can't forget the Western aspect.
Granted. But, and good lord, I'm looking forward to running well, specifically because they re-released Classic Deadlands as the 20th Anniversary Edition, and I'm going to be running that. Not Reloaded. You free Wednesday nights?
It can be.
When we start next week, you're welcome to join us.
Excellent.
I'd invite Amy to come down too, but I think it's a little bit far for you to come from Connecticut. Especially 2 days before the event.
It is a little far, but not that I haven't driven down to New Jersey after work before and driven back the same night. Yeah.
The way you're saying that makes it sound like there's a story involved.
No, you know what? Not really. I've had to go. Let's see. I've had to go down to the Philly area, South Jersey. Oh, I don't know, for a variety of things, for concerts, for just meeting up with friends. Nothing really, interesting. Funerals I think were the worst things. But mostly just to go down and go, hey, how you doing? Okay, I'm gonna drive 4 hours back now. Hope that hi was worth it, because I'm going to go. Now that I said hi, I'm going to say bye now.
4 hours to say hello and drive back 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I've done that, but I like driving, so it doesn't bother me.
See, I absolutely hate driving, so I have a hard time fathoming that, which is ironic given what I do for a living is basically drive right now. Granted, it's technically working security, so it's really easy driving. Drive around a parking lot or drive around a water plant in the middle of the night.
Well, for me...
We got a caller, actually, Amy, so...
Oh, go ahead.
Put him on. Okay, good evening, caller. Welcome to the Paranormal Encyclopedia.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Actually, I do have a little random question on steampunk. I don't know, it's kind of random, I'm sorry.
No, don't worry about it.
What is the most common religion with steampunk?
That is a really good question.
The first thing I can think of is that it's not super significant. It doesn't really come up.
My personal experience, I've run into a lot of... I'd say run into a fair number of neo-pagans at steampunk events.
But is it the majority, or is it just...
I wouldn't say it's the majority. It's partly probably the groups I hang out with, because a lot of neo-pagans are interested in the paranormal. But I do think there is definitely a degree of that, just because it is kind of one of those alternative communities which tend to be very accepting. On the other hand, I've also run into Christians and atheists and a range of other religious groups there.
Yeah.
It's certainly not an exclusionary group.
All right. No,
Amy, do you have any thought on that?
Like, I like steampunk. I'm just not too familiar with it yet, though. So I'm just kind of curious about that. I know you mentioned religion with it before. Like, I'm not a super religious person either, though, but it's a curiosity.
Well, if you're not a super religious person, you should be very comfortable. I mean, you're not. It's definitely not the sort of place where you can get preached at.
Though it might be a little extreme for maybe a Jehovah's Witness,
Granted,
because it is
Yeah.
a bit of a party atmosphere.
All right.
That's
cool.
The only conflict I can really think of.
But yeah, if you're local, definitely consider checking out Blackthorne Steampunk. If not, there's a lot of other really great events.
All right, cool.
Yeah, if you
Thank
look, you can look up Steampunk on Facebook. You can find plenty. I'll put some links in the description as well. So
all right, thank you very much.
Thanks for calling.
Of course, thank you.
You're welcome. I do have it's on my phone, so I can't talk for too long, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. We can let you go then, unless you had another question.
Alrighty. Nope, that's it.
Okay, great. Have a good night, and thanks for calling. Amy,
You
you
too.
there?
Yep, I'm here.
So I think that is an interesting question. Do you have any thoughts on predominant religions in the steampunk community?
You know, that's something I don't think I've ever really thought about. I mean, you know, I actually find that most of the people that I come across that are, you know, either Christians or, well, really, actually, mostly. Well, I'm using my husband as an example. My husband goes to church every week. I'm, you know, and with my daughter, I'm an atheist, so I feel very uncomfortable in organized religious settings.
Fair enough.
Especially Catholic churches. But I legit get anxiety. It's really weird. Even at I went to a Unitarian Universalist church, which my husband was going to at one point, and it's one of the most liberal churches, and everybody's kind of a little bit of everything, and I walk in, I'm like, I can't, I don't know why, but like, we love you. I'm like, I know, I just can't be here. But anyway.
I think that's one of the strengths of steampunk is the fact that it is very welcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I don't know how much I've actually ever heard religion discussed at a steampunk event in that sense. So I don't know, but now I'm curious. I think I might have to just start a poll that weekend and see what people say.
On an academic level, I'm extremely interested.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just, it'd be interesting in general to do, maybe consider a voluntary exit poll to just get an idea of the demographics. Just because I'd be curious, like how many people, how far have you driven, you know, educational level, things like that, just to see what sort of crowds you're getting.
Yeah, as long as it was posted with, this is just for
A
curiosity
voluntary
thing, we're not...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voluntary, completely anonymous, not... And it might, you know, it's something to keep in mind down the line. If you notice you have a huge contingent of academics coming, you might want to aim at a little bit more academic programming, because it's the crowd you're getting, so there might be something of value there, as well as just interesting. We're curious what sort of community we have. Would you answer a couple questions and not put your name on it so we don't know who you are?
Yeah,
I will
exactly.
say, of the three of us, I probably have the stance and the distinction of probably being the one who gets into the most religious discussions at these kinds of events because of the speaking I do.
Really? You mean the guy talking about demons and exorcisms has conversations about religion? I'm floored.
Yeah. And again, which is where I draw, like, a lot of the people I've interacted with are of the neo-pagan community. And again, that may be because it draws a lot of neo-pagans. It may just be because the talks I do draw a lot of neo-pagans. It could be some combination thereof.
And from my personal experience, most neo-pagans are nerdy. Like,
yeah, oh, good lord, yes.
Just remarkably nerdy.
Of the neo-pagans in the room, are any of you not nerdy? Exactly. So, as the, you know, Amy, as you said, you're an atheist, but all the people in the studio with me, except my, the station owner, are neo-pagans. They're all a bunch of nerds, and so am I. Well, I'll say this as well, and I think this is worth pointing out in case our caller is still listening. You know, God rest his soul, when Father Joseph Brose was still with us, he used to come with me to steampunk events in Roman collar, and was extremely welcomed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With that, and again, and also because he was there to talk about the paranormal, he wasn't there to proselytize. We had what I thought was one of the most interesting conversations I've ever seen on the subject. I thought he handled it pretty well because somebody came up to him point blank, clearly dressed and introducing himself as a priest. So, what do you think of gay marriage? And for the fact that I know he was a very conservative individual in some respects, and he wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it, I thought he gave a pretty reasonable answer, which is people can choose whatever kind of sin they want. It's not condoning it, but on the other hand, he's not saying you're going to burn in hell for it. For someone of his conservative mindset, I thought it was a pretty reasonable answer.
It's carefully worded. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's diplomatic, I want to say. This is a lot less nice way of putting the same thing.
It has undertones, which I take issue with, but
I'm not disagreeing with you there. It just how to say it as politely as you can.
No, I'll give credit where credit's
And
due.
still be honest.
It is carefully worded.
Yeah. But again, it's like people aren't going to treat you badly. I'd be fascinated, you know, to see if anyone's ever had a negative religious experience about steampunk as a community. Just because I think it's unlikely to have happened in the community unless there is like a Jehovah's Witness steampunk group out there, or you know, does West Barrow Baptist Church run its own steampunk event that we're not aware of? It wouldn't completely shock me. I doubt it, but it wouldn't shock me. I've been at this too long, I'm too jaded. It wouldn't completely shock me. I mean, for as conservative as they just traditionally are, I still remember the one Jehovah's Witness that used to come to my door. I'd see him in the local comic shop from time to time. And it's through me, because not because, you know, they're regular people too, but it's like, really? Not the most conservative place to show up.
I think I'm still stuck on the mental image of the Phelps family in corsets. I don't think I can get past that, but I'm...
Why would you do that to us? Those are inside head thoughts.
Because I would say, you both know I'm a sadist by now.
There are degrees.
Yeah, I know, and I just blew past 99 of them.
Nope. Oh. That's gonna haunt me.
You're welcome. And to any other listeners I've traumatized, I'm sorry, but I'm not really.
Sorry, not sorry.
Exactly. Trying to think, we're coming up, I mean, we're at 7:15, the show technically ends at 7:30. Although Jane's usually been kind if we're running slightly over. Yeah, is there anything else we should cover about the event? Do you have anything you want to add, Amy?
I think, well, this is going to be the first time that, to my knowledge, actually, maybe it isn't now that I'm thinking about it. We are going to be we're going to be having a wedding at the event this weekend.
Yep.
So basically on Saturday at 4 o'clock, all programming is stopping for this wedding.
Of course.
So we're really excited and we're honored that Chelsea Goodwin and Rusty May Moore are going to be officially getting married, which is great.
Yep,
we've got a great music lineup.
To the wonderful couple. I've met them many times. They're very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just
angry they are.
That you can't make it because you're already going to a wedding.
But like, why didn't he do it there?
Exactly.
I mean, other than the fact that he's not in the steampunk scene and his girlfriend is very much not a nerd.
That might be why.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
You convert them. I've done this before. But
let's see, I'm trying to think what else. So we have a great music lineup too. Let's see, A Halo Called Fred, The Eternal Frontier, Gomez Richardson from Venus Lens Cap is going to be there, Captain Zorik, the Dust Bowl Fairies, Vincent and Sutera, as well as they're actually going to be making their, they're a couple, and they're going to be making their, I think their musical convention event debut, I think, at Blackthorne
wow.
Steam. So yeah, which is cool. And we're gonna have stick pony races, which someone's gonna be running for us, which I'm excited about.
Interesting.
Fantastic.
And yeah, and we're also gonna have Saturday night later in the evening. We're gonna be doing a drum circle featuring the Blackthorne Steampunk Orchestra, which is going to be made up of attendees who come to the steampunk DIY instrument workshop earlier in the day. They can make shakers, drums, maracas. I'm going to be bringing a whole bunch of supplies.
Oh, good
and
heavens.
people can make their own percussion instruments to play later on in the evening.
At the same time, but a good distance, because we've worked this out, that I'm telling ghost
Yes.
stories, I might add, around the campfire.
I will say, though, again, the schedule for Saturday night is going to change in terms of music and drum circles, so we may end up either pushing it to later or maybe even doing it Sunday after breakfast at some point, doing more of a daytime drum circle. I have to figure that out with the people running it, but yes, I'm planning on kind of bouncing around and trying to hit up everything that's going on during the weekend, because there is a lot of stuff.
There is, and I am incredibly looking forward to the event. I'm just grateful that I'm not going to be trying to shout down a drum circle. Well, and then the voice said, "Who's got?"
But just think, if it was, you just have to work on your rhythm then.
Yeah.
You have to play with the drum circle.
It
Just
was
imagine-
a dark and stormy night. He's got a
That could work.
I'm
Ghost
now
stories
tempted
and
to
drum
say it's
circle.
like, yeah, combine the two.
I don't think that actually a good suggestion. Just novice drummer, drum circle, and ghost stories sounds more like noise.
Well, you need maybe not a whole drum circle, but certainly like one or two drummers that were rolling with it, and just
Yeah.
dramatic music.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well, I
gotta talk
told
to
you
somebody
should
and see
get
if
the
I can get in
ambiance
on
you
it.
deserve, and I think that might include some Easter egg maracas. I'm just saying.
La cucaracha.
True.
And I appreciate that. Folks, again, seriously, it is a wonderful event. You can find it on Facebook at Blackthorne Steam. You can find it on Google by looking up Blackthorne Steam. I will be doing 3 separate things that weekend. I'm doing ghost stories around the campfire, which I am hyper excited about. I am going to be doing magic, which I'm also hyper excited about. And I'm going to be doing a brief lecture on the history of voodoo as a religion, which I'm also hyper. So I'm basically hyper excited about the whole event. But especially
Yeah,
this is only the second time I've ever done magic at an event, officially.
And I'm just sad.
I'll be not.
I did want to mention one quick thing.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, by all means.
For anyone that can't do the whole weekend, we understand that. We understand that, a lot of the people that come up to the Catskills aren't exactly native to the area, so they'd be driving a number of hours. But if people have, weekend plans, but they have Saturday free or Sunday free or even Friday evening free, but they don't want to stay over, admission for that specific purpose is free. So it's just with meals and accommodations, there is a charge for that. So if you can only make Saturday, then come on up, hang out with your fellow steampunks, enjoy some music, do the stick pony races. And if you do want to do meals, you just need to call the Blackthorne Resort, and they can get a meal plan set up for you for that day.
That is phenomenal. I mean, lots of events do, day passes. There aren't a whole lot that do. Okay, if you're just coming for the day, don't worry about paying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing, that's a first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll miss out on
Yep,
the great
yeah.
food, but that's phenomenal. And I believe I'm performing both Friday and Saturday. So shameless self-promotional plug. If anybody in the listening audience is coming up and can only do one, Friday or Saturday, please come by and say hello. Don't worry, I do bite, but I have all my shots. And only if you ask nicely. I could have resisted, but why? I can always resist. I just usually choose not to. It's more fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, I hope to see as many people there as possible. I'm, you know, like I said, this is my first event that I've kind of been spearheading, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that, you know, people get to come up, even if it's just for a day. Weekend would be awesome, but a day would be fine too.
I want to say for the record, Amy, you know, I've done a whole bunch of these events, and given how many times I didn't see a schedule until I actually physically showed up, the fact that you sent me something that I can look at and make suggestions to was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank
great
you.
credit
I just didn't want to screw up.
there. No, I think you've pulled together a pretty good event with all the problems that you've had. Look at the fact you got all these people who have showed up in the last couple of weeks. Look at, like I said, the schedule needs some tweaking, but you got a schedule.
Yep.
You got a rough draft schedule out to performers for us to check and give you feedback on. That's huge. I wish a lot of other events did that instead of, oh, by the way, here's the schedule at the door.
Wait, none of this works.
The one thing you managed to, despite the drum circle thing, the one thing you managed not to do that I've had other people do to me, I have been scheduled at 2 different rooms, doing 2 different things at the exact same time. And sadly, bilocation is not one of my talents.
Work on that.
I am. But I need I need sainthood, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, if you're working towards sainthood, that could be a miracle.
True.
Yeah.
So now you know which miracle to work on.
Write that down. Put that on your list.
I can use it for the events too, because it's always the problem I have. There are so many cool things going on at the same time, and it's like, I can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, just double sleeve that.
Time Turners from Harry Potter.
I was going with Altered Carpet.
That too. I haven't seen it yet, so. But go ahead, Amy.
Oh no, I was going to say 2 things. First, I would love to be able to take credit for all the people that have, you know, said, hey, we're going to be there, and, you know, they're steampunk makers or musicians. I would love to be able to take credit for those, but I can't. It was more of, hey, so-and-so's showing up. Can you make sure that they, you know, they're squared away and they're set and they're going to be in a panel? Sure, why not? But the way that this event's very unique, I think, in terms of the way that it's scheduled, because the world basically stops for meals and the world stops for the wedding. So it's kind of just fitting things into blocks, and there's the dining hall, as you know, is directly above the pub.
Yep.
So it's not exactly a good idea to have someone telling ghost stories in an atmosphere that needs silence or to create tension.
Yeah.
And you've got a band playing downstairs.
I've had that situation
not
a few
really
times. Doing the 100 candles at Halloween in the Catskills. Had a few times where we not super bad because there was at least some distance and some, you know, noise cancellation. But okay, I'm telling a scary story and there's a drum solo. And it's not the right scary story for a drum solo.
You just gotta tweak it. It's ghost drums. It's fine. That comes up.
But this situation is going to be different. It's going to be better. You've got a whole lot of stuff going on. And the fact Gene just walked out of the room means we get a little extra time. At least until he comes back.
Or, you know, not.
No.
Or not.
Hey.
Okay, so Beth, our lovely producer, from now on, when Gene leaves the room, it's now officially your job to barricade the door. You're okay with that, right, Gene? Gene says, sure, we're good. But we are wrapping up for the night, ladies and gentlemen. Amy, I want to thank you for coming on. You've been a fabulous guest. You had nothing to be worried about. You did just fine. Folks, I do want to remind everybody who's listening to check out NordVPN. You know, if you're on the internet and you're concerned about security, check them out. The prices are very reasonable. It's full 30-day money-back guarantee. Check the link in the description below. Aside from the fact you'll get great internet security, you'll help the show out. You know, if you've got a VPN or security, you're not worried about security for whatever reason, you can also go to audibletrial.com. patreon.com/paranormally, and you can get a 1 month free trial of Audible with a free audiobook. And even after the trial, you get to keep that audiobook. It is absolutely phenomenal. There are thousands of titles to check out on there. I highly recommend it. You can find all those links, and you will find links. As promised, later tonight I will go on and put links to various steampunk information and to the event and things of that nature in the chat in the description when I get home. Is there anything else you want to say before we say goodnight, Amy?
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see everyone at Blackthorne Steam next weekend, and thank you again for presenting and letting me ramble on about how great this event's going to be.
My pleasure. As I said to you, presenting, in general, I love presenting at events, but presenting at Blackthorne Steam has always been kind of vacation to me. Because it's like, no, I mean, wait, you mean I get to go up to be in the mountains and chill out with a bunch of cool people and listen to music, and all I have to do is talk for a while? Where do I sign up again?
Yep. Exactly. It is. It's a steampunk vacation.
Exactly.
And I have to say, I wish you all the luck with this weekend.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
But and I forgot to mention, folks, if you're interested, I actually late night last night put up a video of my own called "The Nature of Evil," where it's a philosophical musing on what it is to be evil and the philosophy of morality and ethics. I think it's kind of interesting. Feel free to check that out. Yes, evil. Feel free to check that out on YouTube or on Breach.tv, where of course you can find all of our episodes as well. But that's going to do it for us tonight. This is Kevin Mears and
Drew Rosansky.
We're saying good night, God bless,
Take care.
Live long and prosper. It seemed like a good ending point.